This is an example of what a empire would look like. An empire is a metaphor for anything that could be an organized structure that typically has, like, up at the top, a CEO, and then a larger number of middle management, and then a larger number of people, say, in the mailroom if it were a company, for different types of things to represent an industry, an economy, and it can mean anything as far as a social network or group, anything abstract that can be considered a grouping of people, an organization, a club, a committee. And any of these influences can be understood as a triangle. Top triangle, the main triangle would be will just have different shapes. Like certain types of projects can be happen when certain types of people are combined, splitting apart, and then you can expand the entire thing. So you have more people in upper management, middle, and lower, or whatever as a metaphor for the empire. And you can expand on the bottom, whether that's adding new technology to help the people more progress with their ability to do things at the bottom, or to just have another layer like your company purchases a daughter corporation. And then, of course, organizing that, you decide where within the industry itself you put your company or your triangle, and it's strategically, like on a chessboard, located in every way, branding, location physically, to other pieces within the industry. And of course, you'd want to consider other industries if you thought of that as well. Let's see. And you'd want to consider all the different elements, skills, the ability to move and fluctuate in different areas, and the considerations of the industry itself and the other industries within it. And this is an example of an influence aspect. Say a CEO sends a marketing piece to a co-marketing company somewhere else, and they send out waves of information, and the waves can be created, can get a net. I call them net. Any aspect where there's a place where value can be received, whether it's this is where the bookstore sells your book, this is where a company sells your product through their retail shop. So I have different. So you have expanded companies. You have possibly a company you directly influence, or another allied company for whatever reason within your own industry, as well as somebody in another industry, and then they create waves. Waves would be mostly psychological or abstract, sort of like a trend or a hyped up thing that somebody wants that's new and people want to experience, or it could just be some aspect of information or an ideological movement in and of itself that's created or moving in a certain way. And these could be all different types of industries. It don't just have to be commercial or things like that. It could be abstract as well. It could be like the entire spectrum of, we'll say, recreation in and of itself. And then, of course, just like any kind of chessboard piece, there's allies, whether it's like, we'll say, a bought-in daughter corporation, or if it's just a temporary strategic alliance between certain elements within a corporation and other empires, and then their influence collectively, like a committee or group, onto other ones, and therefore breaking apart or creating over here, influencing this industry altogether. Whether you're doing something specific for your industry or their industry, completely influencing it, or using the both of them to create a third industry, or shrinking an industry and then having aspects of the different companies influenced within them as well. Another aspect would be like similar to like an ancient castle, like in the medieval times, like a defensive wall. And defenses could be anything. They could be viruses for the computer. It could be security for the company. It could also be just marketing strategies to defend against waves of bad PR. So it's an aspect not just to think, oh, these are things that are already included, but to have somebody fundamentally thinking in that concept metaphorically, to always have that in the back of your mind and to go over constantly. So that way you see it fundamentally from the ground up, because this doesn't necessarily apply to a company, this could apply to an entire industry. So if you think about it from that perspective and you just come at it from the beginning, fundamental, what is this? It's an empire and it needs defenses just like a castle would need defenses. And then there's other pieces. There's typical, what you'd say, a rook. A rook would be a solid piece, we'll say, It's like a solid move, like one solid marketing campaign, one solid block to stop an industry or a company coming against you. And it's one large movement, whether it's an entire company going under or one being created in and of itself. A rook could be anything. It could be an empire itself. It could be an entire industry. It could be just a movement, like a marketing piece sent to somebody. A bishop, on the other hand, is another aspect that's influenced by your empire, just like the rook, that has strategic, specific influences similar to a cause and effect, but along each line of the causal effect domino, you're directly influencing it. So it's sort of not such an overt specific action, but it is sequential and it is direct and it is specific. So it's not something typical that we would normally see or think of, just one new marketing campaign or something of that. It would just be a large amount of strategic guerrilla marketing or other things like that that you wouldn't typically anticipate, very strategically with the strategies from the previous advanced strategies. And then, of course, you'd have whatever your competitor empire is. This is going to be a conglomerate of anything, including competition, but not even that, just abstract potential weaknesses, threats to your company, just things that can go wrong in general, just general lack of growth. And then those things have potential rooks and bishops. And these things are the things that are likely to be influenced and by this to negatively affect you. These things are the things that are likely to be used by you to directly affect these things. And a pawn is something that is a one-time use only that could be used by either one, and it's pretty much every and anything under the sun other than these concepts here. So if you can identify what your empire is, what your likely allies are, and your likely powerful moves, as well as your enemy, what it totally is, and what its likely powerful moves are, and how even those can influence different pawns. It gives you a much better way of looking at it like a chessboard, so it can be a lot easier to just fundamentally see what it is. And to create waves, a wave being abstract but still having a lot of concrete influence, within your empire yourself you can have different aspects. You can have one central point within or without of your empire to create a wave. You can have another aspect like a solid marketing campaign to neutralize the waves either naturally or from some other empire itself. Or you can funnel them and have them directed in a certain way. Say you want these positive waves coming in into a net system like this. That can be marketing information that's trending, something that everybody hears about and you wanted to capitalize on by funneling it into a certain area and then having that collect revenue somehow. And then, of course, you can have a network of aspects similar to this that are central points of influencing waves in whatever directions. It can be people, it can be just communications from your company, and then it's different levels of it. So there'd be the main largest ones, and then there'd be a sequence of ones after that and ones after that, whether it be something on like a Facebook page that has thousands and thousands of views, and then something within your local industry and competitive companies or allied companies, and then something within your company itself, and then a large amount of those, whether it's just one memo that sends out or something like that, just so that there's a well-rounded amount in all directions of waves of information of something. And then, of course, there's waves that ricochet off other elements within a company. This company sends information into, say, this company, say the press, and the press sends out an information this way. And different elements that you can have a company that has another company underneath it, and they just have a bombardment of waves that can create like a front of waves, so that it can create a massive influence within itself to have an even larger wave. Like these combined waves, one wave causes another, causes another, causes another. And while these seem elaborate, if you bring it down to a small enough scale, you can start to see the benefits, especially if you understand exactly what you're trying to get at and you work backwards from there. So if I want this big wave and I have this little company and I need another company and another company and another company to ping off of, similar to the ladder strategy in the first advanced strategies, those would be more concrete, but you can apply all those advanced strategies to waves as metaphorical ways like diamonds and things like that. So for an example, you have one company, you have a diamond, a direct diamond that sends out to you, then you have a net, and